You're listening to the Racer to Racer podcast presented by Race 92. Race 92 is a vintage-inspired racing apparel brand specializing in celebrating vintage race culture and adapting to motorsports today. Check out race92.com for all your racing merchandise needs. I'm your co-host, Aaron McAtee, and the other co-host you may have seen walking out of Barberlawn's 459 with a big old smile on his face. You may have seen him at a dirt track, though probably not lately. He is Scott Bowie.
What's going on, Aaron?
May have seen you at Disney World lately, right?
Yeah, people could have seen me at Disney World. Just spent a week there. Good times for sure.
Yeah, well, I know it's been a couple weeks. I know we we kind of took a little bit of hiatus. We posted the Scott Harrington podcast, and then so this one is Speedy Dan Clarke. Now, due to scheduling with Dan, you weren't able to be a part of it. So this one is just me. But it went well. I've known Dan. I was trying to figure that. I think I've known him since at least 2010 or 2011. So I've known him for a very long time. Great guy. He drove in Champ Car, and I guess he was kind of unfortunate in a way when he got into Champ Car was kind of towards the end of Champ Car. So he only had about 2 years in Champ Car, and then the merger happened. But I mean, he has done racing since. He got to race in. He did do a season of Indy. I think it was Indy Pro back then with Derek Walker. He's doing sports car stuff now. He did a NASCAR Xfinity race. Very, very talented individual. He definitely had success in Champ Car. He had a couple podiums. But obviously it was just the timing was kind of wrong. He kind of talks about he was very close to having to ride for the 500. And he's very honest, which I've always liked about Dan, and he's done a lot of driving coaching. He has a simulator. He's starting like a simulator business now. And then I'm going to add the link to that once he's working on the website and stuff. But I would definitely recommend any, young, inspiring driver to really, talk to him because he understands that we talk about this all the time, right? Scott, like just the honest truth of the sport. Just
Yes.
he's definitely been through it, and he's one of those people that have experienced kind of all levels of it. And I think that's important. I mean,
Yeah, I
I'm
do
not
too.
saying if you talk to someone who's been on top, like someone like Lewis Hamilton has been on top. I mean, sure but I think for an aspiring race car driver, it's important to kind of see all aspects of a sport.
Well, unfortunately there's a lot more Dan Clarks than there are Lewis Hamiltons, and
Absolutely.
there's a lot of very, very, very talented drivers who never even got Dan's chances. So, um, the sport, this sport is unfortunately unlike most any sport I can think of. This sport doesn't always reward talent, and I don't say that to denigrate anyone. It's just how it is. It's such a money eater that it requires all the right pieces to fit together and fall into a slot.
Yeah.
We can go on, and I don't want to call drivers out by name in terms of guys who haven't made it to where they want to get to. Um, I think anybody who follows the sport can kind of see it. But that being said, there's a lot to learn from these guys, whether they were on top of the sport or not, or whether they were on top for just a moment, or whether they didn't even make it. So I think there's a lot to be learned from these guys.
Absolutely. And he says he's fortunate now to where he's able to make a living from doing driving coaching and some other things that he's involved with racing. I know he does a lot of stuff out at, I think it's Putnam Park.
Hendon Park,
They
yeah.
used to do like a lot of, I don't know if they still do like Indy Lights testing out there. But it's more like a motorsports club now. And
Okay.
he does like coaching for people that are in that club. But and he's also raced in the Porsche, I think it's Porsche Carrera Cup series.
Yeah.
So he was doing that. But no, it was a great interview. Like I said, I've known Dan for a long time. Great guy. He's actually done spotting out of the track at least. I think he said 6 or 7 years now. For the 500. So yeah, no, great dude. And I think everyone will enjoy the podcast. Shout out to a couple of our sponsors. First off, I just had the good folks, the good guys out of my house a couple weeks
Oh,
ago
okay.
to do just whatever you call the fall checkup, or
Oh,
now it's
nice.
not fall now, winter, whatever you call it, with the furnace, make sure make sure
The getting
everything's up
cold
to date.
checkup.
Getting cold checkup, the Scott Valley special. And everything is good. So timely
Nice.
manner, scheduled it. They were out in 2 days, no hassle.
Yeah, Ryan and the crew there, great guys. And they do great work. And I just, yeah, and like anybody that's listened to the show for a while just knows that if I find people that not only am I friendly with, but do great work, I mean, you can't beat that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You can trust them. And they'll do the job right. So when I had the
Yep.
issue with my air conditioner last year, the company before them came out like 3 times. They still didn't have it right. They came out one time, haven't had any issues since.
Right. And that's what I mean, that's what you look for, right? I
That's what it
mean,
should be. Yeah,
that's exactly right. That's exactly right. That's what it should be. And gotta give a shout out to Tice Carlson. I know he helped you recently.
he
Helped your
did.
family, I should say, recently.
Yeah.
So anybody needs to sell a house or has anything in that type of realm, he doesn't do just bail bonds. So you don't have to have legal issues to work with Tice. Shout out to him. Shout out to former guest Taylor Reimer. I see where she will be concentrating on pavement late models next year instead of the
Hmm.
national midgets. So shout out to her. Wish her nothing but the best. Um, man, I don't know much else. Rumors coming out of PRI, and I saw it of all places out of the groove with Eric Estep, and I haven't had a chance to check David Land's channel yet. Honda throwing the bait in the water, saying they may be leaving IndyCar in a couple of years if IndyCar doesn't reel in the costs. I don't know what they mean by reel in the costs because they do very little development as far as the engines, and they're trying to do the hybrids to bring in more engine manufacturers. But the hybrids now been put on hold till after the speedway. So I don't know what that means, but boy, I sure hope Honda doesn't leave IndyCar because that will not be good.
Yeah, that could definitely pose a problem for IndyCar. Um,
Yeah, major
yeah,
problem.
so it'll be
It's a shame.
interesting.
They just uh again, I mean, I don't know the financials of it. Um, and of course, in building any type of engine program, major money commitment from any corporation. I hate to see that Kia Hyundai doesn't get involved. I think it would really serve them well to be a part of IndyCar. Obviously, Toyota's not involved with IndyCar anymore, and I would think it'd serve them well, but they don't. And they have their reasons why they don't. I just hope that changes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Other than that, I will say, thanks to Fast Times Indoor Karting. Now we are planning a couple things. And first off, we may be doing a Chili Bowl. We'll try to do a Chili Bowl live stream or something in some capacity. We may be doing a party at McGilvery's. We don't know for sure yet, like a viewing party for Chili Bowl. Working on a couple things with that, so we'll keep everyone posted. But thanks to Fast Times Indoor Karting, we will be doing a maybe charity. We're still working out that aspect, but we will be doing a pro-am endurance
In
race.
some level, it will be a charity event. Somehow, I will make sure that that does happen, even if it's a small amount to charity for the winning team. I will make sure that money goes to charity on that.
Yep. So yeah, so basically how that's going to work is it hasn't been officially announced yet. This is the first time I've really announced it. It's supposed to be February 24th, probably in the morning, Saturday morning. And it's going to include 8 pro drivers, and there'll be 4 people total per team, which includes 3 amateurs. And then it's like a 2-hour endurance race. So each person will do like 15-minute stints. And we're going to be accommodating because there are some pro drivers that may be involved, that may be a little older and may not want to do the full, the full 3 or 4 stints or whatever. So we're going to be accommodating, and that's why we're usually they have 3 people per team, but we're going to do 4. In some cases, if we have to do 5, we may. If we have
Right.
more than 8 pro drivers, and we may double some people up to allow people only to do 1 stint if they want to. So we want to have it to where if someone wants to be involved, they can be. But yeah, look out for when it gets closer. We'll start announcing drivers that are going to be there, and no, I think it'll be fun. I think it'll be good.
I think first of all, I want to say hats off to you for. I know this has been something that you've wanted to do since basically the beginning of the show, but something to this type of capacity. So hats off to you for putting the ball in motion, and hats off to Fast Times for making it a reality, and to the pro drivers who are committing their time as well. So, and obviously we can't have a lockdown list. Unfortunately, some of these guys may end up having situations where
Yeah.
they pick up rides or something where they may not be available due to testing. We don't know yet, but all in all, it will work out one way or another.
Yeah, it's hard
And
to lock down names now just because it's
yeah,
still a couple months away. But needed to reach out to people to make sure that we
sure,
could at least have an idea, like we're going to be able to get the people, and I don't think we're going to have a problem. I have at least 4. I have at least 5 guys now that said they'll do it, and several of them have added to their calendar. So, I mean, they'll do it unless like some unforeseen circumstance obviously comes up with testing or
right.
something along those lines. But I think it'll be great, and yeah, I mean, Fast Times back in the day used to do events kind of like that where you could race. It was mostly through, and it wasn't Fast Times himself. It was like I think it was IndyCar. I remember like back in 2005, 2006, they did an event where they had several IndyCar drivers there. You got to race with them, and that hasn't happened for a while. So I really wanted to kind of bring that back, because I think that's a big selling point for indoor go-kart place like that. And it's not your typical indoor go-kart place. It's not like I call it like putt-putt go-karts, like where you don't have to wear a helmet and the carts go real slow and anyone can do right. This is
Yeah.
completely different. I mean, drivers go there during the off season for training, if that tells you anything. It's physically demanding. Um, and it definitely takes skill to be good at it.
Yeah, that place is no joke. I mean, and any pro driver who runs there, I mean, and drivers they go flat out. I mean, I don't know any pro driver that every time they get anything fast, they don't try to see how fast they
Yeah.
can make it go. And almost to a T, man, they get out and say, "Wow, that's a workout." So if pro drivers are saying it's a workout, it's a workout,
Yeah, absolutely. I know Jagger, after Jagger did it, he was showing me all the bruising he had on his
right?
body afterwards.
I mean, just even like guys like Cody Swanson go there
Yeah.
and in the off season to stay sharp, or Lucky Hughes. We did the event with Lucky Hughes, or I mean, guys who race. I mean, not guys who raced.
Yeah.
You guys who are still currently racing go up there to keep sharp.
Absolutely. So yeah, hopefully it'll be, an event where people will get a chance to, race against pro drivers.
Yeah,
Someone like me, I would never have had the opportunity. Obviously, we do the go-kart video, so we get to do it. We're fortunate enough to where I get to do it um more than the average person, but this will kind of give people and I've always wanted to give people an opportunity to race, kind of like what we get to do. And I think this will be a good experience to race against hopefully get some former Indy 500 drivers, some more current drivers like Indy Next. But yeah, I think it'll be great.
hey, I see your Allinger Jr. shirt there. What you got
Yeah.
going on with that?
Thank you. I was going to mention that. So, Race 92, we mentioned it earlier. We have the Allenser Jr. exclusive collection. We've had it since into March, early April. But we have some new stuff coming out for the winter. This is the Allenser Jr. Snowmobile Racing sweatshirt. And then also, this is one of the new hats that we have on with famous quote, I just don't know what indie means. Or you just don't know what indie means. Um,
I like the first one better.
yeah,
Like,
we need to
man, I
change it.
just don't know what Indy means. And then after you win, see, that's the one you win where before you win, and then after you win, you wear you just don't know what Indy means.
Exactly. So make sure you check that out. And I think I've mentioned this before, but we have the exclusive trading card collection I was going to grab. Yeah, so we have this promotion that we're doing, and there's still some left where any Allens or Junior item purchased from the Race 92 store, we'll get 1 pack per item. So if you buy 3 items, you get 3 packs while supplies last. And then 50% of the packs do have signed Allens or Junior
Oh, nice.
exclusive cards. So and those are numbered out of 25. So they will go fast, but that is the promotion now, and people have been buying them, and we have sent the cards out, and people have enjoyed it so far. So yeah,
Oh,
no,
nice.
definitely.
I didn't realize there were signed ones. That's really cool.
Yeah, so go to race92.com, check it out. But other than that, oh, I do need to give a shout out to Racer Clack, Patrick Fadden. I actually saw Patrick a couple weeks ago. I went to Fast Times with him and his sons. His sons are pretty fast. They actually are getting into go-kart racing themselves. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, go to racercollect.com for any of your racing memorabilia needs. Patrick's a great guy. He already said that I think his sons are going to race in the endurance race, so look forward to seeing them there. And yeah, thanks everyone for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe on YouTube and Spotify, and hope everyone has a great week. And Christmas holiday is coming up, so hope everyone has a safe holiday if we don't speak to them since then.
Yeah.
Before then,
Yeah, I'm the same way. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, um, Happy Kwanzaa, and whatever you're into. Um, it's just a great time of the year. Uh, take a moment out and just make sure everybody knows how much you appreciate them, everybody in your life. And I got one more shout out, Jace Jones, Jagger's brother. I don't know if we talked about this on the last time or not. Jace won his first. Uh, it's not really UFC, but that's what everybody calls it. Mixed martial arts uh, fight. He stopped the kid in less than a minute. I forget, it was like 47 seconds or something like that. He has a kickboxing fight coming up this Saturday. So it's not, you can't do ground and pound and stuff like that. It's going to be kickboxing and punching. So best of luck to Jace, and I know he loves it. We will have him on the show at some point. We were trying to get him a couple weeks ago. He has, he's a young man with a very busy schedule, so we will definitely try to lock that down shortly. But yeah, happy holidays, everyone.
our guest today has multiple podiums in Champ Car, drove in Indy Lights, NASCAR Xfinity Series, and most recently driving in Porsche North America Carrera Cup Series. We were joined by Speedy Dan Clarke. Dan, thank you so much for joining us. Like we were saying before I started recording, I've known you for a very long time. I think I was trying to figure that out. I think I first knew you like 2010 or 2011, so it's been a while.
Yeah, yeah, it would have been about 2010.
Yeah. So I definitely knew when we started this about a year and a half ago, I wanted to get you on at some point. So talk, I mean, obviously I'm pretty familiar with like your career and different things you've raced, but talk a little bit about like how you got interested in racing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm happy to talk about anything actually, but how I started in racing, pretty typical, like a lot of people. I don't have any family that were, previously in racing. My dad was an F1 fan, and that's how I noticed it really when I was about 8. It's like, what's dad doing on Sunday afternoon? And who's that driver? Oh, that's Ayrton Senna. Became a big fan of Senna, and 8 years old started, wanting to be an F1 driver, and then I think it would have been in '92. There was a local newspaper competition for an indoor go kart track that was opening up, and I didn't know anything about that stuff. But the question was, who won the British Grand Prix that year, and that's just not even really a question, right? In '92, so it's probably the only competition, picking a number or from a draw that I've ever won. And so went along to this opening for a go-kart track, and they kind of ran race formats on weekends, like go-karts, warm up, bunch of heats, and then features. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. Um, did that for a few times, maybe once or twice a month for a few months, and somehow at 8, some people thought I was pretty good. I was racing against kids up to 15. I think you could call it podium. It was indoor go-kart track, but did pretty well. Podiumed a few times in the main feature, and people started doing what always happens in racing. They get in your ear. They're like, "Hey, you could be really good at this. You should
Right.
get your own equipment and go race outdoors." And then proceeded a lot of blowing up motors and figuring out how to rebuild carburetors. And my dad and I went go-karting for about 8 years, locally and then regionally and nationally. And it was fantastic. Great, father-son experiences. Great experience for a 9-year-old, 10-year-old. The different jobs you have when you're racing. If you're, one of those kids that has a dad that makes you do stuff
Right.
rather than does it for you. So I can't list the different job titles I had. Navigator, back when you used to use road maps, coffee maker, eventually cook, team chef, driver, obviously, secondary mechanic. My dad probably at times, was probably thought he was a driver coach too as well. We had some good arguments, but we did well. We won some regional championships. Finished 4th in the British Championship, which we were really proud of because we were the only non-team entry in the top 10. So we were really proud of that. And then, at that point, it's kind of like you think you're going to be a race car driver, right? You're doing well. You're beating majority of kids, and you're like, oh, I could totally do this. I'm going to make a living out of motorsport, and I'm probably going to be rich and be a famous race car driver. And then, but after that, it was a driving school in the Formula Ford series, kind of in Formula Ford cars. So a lot like Skip Barber. This was in the UK, based at Silverstone. It was a Silverstone Drive School in-house Formula Ford Championship. Did that when I was 17 and won that series. And then that's when I got extremely lucky, because my parents, they both just worked in IT, regular 9 to 5. And after winning that championship, one of the school instructors wanted to start a national Formula Ford team, which even then, 2001 or 2000, was still a really big series, and that was really important because if anyone's ever done Formula Ford racing, especially wingless, it's like fantastic racing. It's a great test of drivers. Lots of close racing, a lot like go karting. None of the aero wash. It's just literally wheel to wheel. And he wanted to start a race team and wanted me to drive for him, and he knew a guy from the music business who had helped out one of his friends in a kind of regional Formula Ford series. And so the instructor, John LaBelle, started Medina Sport, and he's been very successful with that for a few decades. Introduced me to this guy from the music business, Chaz Cole. And this was a guy who, was kind of self-made, wealthy guy, and couldn't race himself. So he kind of had a passion for it, and he kind of became my almost like surrogate dad really for racing. Managed me, and took care of finding the sponsorship. He was entrenched in the music business, so had a lot of contacts, and raised money to go racing. And we did Formula Ford, and then drove the following year. That was in what was then the Avon Junior series. So there were 2 Formula Ford series, Junior and the main series. And then moved into the main series with the Works Van Diemen team, which was, a super proud moment. The cars had the Duckham's livery on them still, the blue and yellow. And did okay. But then the following year, had another go at it with the team that is now United Autosports. So Richard Dean's team. And we finished second in the championship, won the Formula Ford Festival. That was 2004. So shout out to Alan Gaz, my mechanics. They were a great couple of guys for me that year. That was one of those years, was like a rebuilding confidence year. I'd had a horrible year in with the ex-Works Van Diemen team, just because I was inexperienced and made some mistakes. But yeah, the mechanics at JLR, then United Autosport, really kind of put their arm around me and rebuilt me and gave me a lot more confidence again. And we finished off the year with a win at Spa, which was part of the British Championship, and winning the Formula Ford Festival, finishing second in the championship. And at that point, you really that was an event that really put you on the map, got people to notice you a little bit. So then started looking at other series like Formula Renault at the time. I didn't enjoy that much. People in racing who knew me at the time will laugh because they know there's some of the stories from there. But I got an opportunity in Formula 3, and that was, another huge step up for me, which was just fantastic because those cars, anyone that's raced Formula 3 knows how great that stuff is. And got to race for a new team in F3, which was the Raikkonen Robertson team, Double R Racing, and that was their first year. And I was teammates with Bruno Senna, so that within a few months, gone from winning the Formula Ford Festival to now, teammates with my racing idol's nephew and Kimi Raikkonen's race team, which was just amazing, and managed to podium in the first race and won a race that year for them, finished 5th in the championship. Was really good. Looking to do another year of F3, and then opportunities kind of called in America, and all of a sudden I think I had to go to Silverstone to get my helmet back from the team we were going to start testing with, because now I was going to race in Champ Car, the Champ Car World Series, or CART, or now IndyCar as it's officially, I guess, history is called, or the records are kind of merged together now, right?
Right. Yeah.
And yeah, then I arrived in America in Indianapolis for 2006, and jumping from, what was that? I think it was like 18 months away from racing Formula Ford, and now I'm racing the Lola Cosworth 750 horsepower.
Yeah, that's a big difference. That's a real big difference.
Yeah, first race Long Beach. So yeah, it was really a kind of a whirlwind period in my time. I was 22 then, moved to America by myself and found an apartment. And, yeah, went, racing some of the best racing I've ever been in, and really enjoyed it. Really was an amazing time.
Did racing in America, I mean, was that ever like on your mind to actually come over race in America, or was it something that just kind of came up and it was an opportunity, so you did it?
I think, I was a kid, so I was pretty dumb. Probably just kept thinking all the time, for the most part, that F1 was going to be an opportunity. And then you get, the last year or so before I left the UK, you start to realize, F1's really not going to happen.
Right.
And my manager did a lot of business in the US, so he was always in my ear, like, what did he used to say? He used to say, like, what kind of career, if you could choose, would you have? And he would say, this is what he would say. He would say, do you want to have a career like Johnny Herbert, where you can maybe get to F1, maybe you'll get 1 or 2 race wins? And again, this is not saying that I would win races in F1. And they said, oh, would you want a career like Paul Tracy, where you can win IndyCar championships, multiple races, have a career for a long time? And he'd always say funny things, but he was a hugely important imprint and experience for me in my life, and growing up, did a lot of really, really good stuff for me. And so he would, say funny stuff sometimes like that. And we started to look at IndyCar. We went to, I think, the Vegas 2005 race in Champ Car, sorry. And there was no way, you do one test in a Champ Car, and there's no way you're not going to want to do that. Fully kind of manual racing, you could say, no power steering. At that point, we're using the stick shift, so you had to blip your own downshifts, sequential, and just that car, I think nearly maybe 800 horsepower was pushed past, and yeah, it was a weapon of a car, just really fantastic.
So your first oval would have been probably over here, right? In Milwaukee?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the Milwaukee Mile.
What was that transition like? I mean, obviously you raced road courses your whole life, and then you come over and do an oval.
Yeah. I mean, Milwaukee's like pretty flat as far as they
Yeah.
go. You know, got to lift for the turns. And I'm excited to see that Milwaukee Mile is back.
Yeah.
I haven't heard many people talking about it, but I think it's a really cool oval to have. You know, I would think a lot of drivers will say, you know, it's great to have a challenge like that where it's you got to lift in the turns. You know, kind of puts a little bit more back in the driver, I think.
Sure.
Um, I think ovals mostly just terrified me. Not from that classic, you know, this is not safe, no one should be doing it point of view. More just from the sensations of the car. Given what little experience I had in the car on ovals, I was probably just mostly overly conscious of how numb the car felt. You know, from what you feel of a car moving around on road courses, my experience was like you get 10% of that feeling when you're on ovals. You know, and if you haven't done ovals enough, which I haven't, you never really get past that point of, you know, being braver, which you have to be if you're going to do well on ovals. So I never really did it enough. I did Milwaukee Mile and then I did 5 ovals after that in Indy Lights, and that was it. That's all I did.
I saw something online and I didn't realize this. And this is on Wikipedia, so I may be completely wrong, but it said that eight.
Oh, I know exactly what you're gonna say.
What am I going to say?
Before you read that stuff, there's a lot of stuff on my Wikipedia page that's a prank that guys I was actually online on the sim with last night did. I don't know which one it was, but if
Well,
they're ever
no. This
listening
says,
to
and this could have been legit. I guess it's that HVM Racing was Cedric the Entertainer was a part owner.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, to give props to the guys that I was with last night, they'll appreciate if people look at the Wikipedia page. I think the bottom few paragraphs they added recently, they might actually be removed because they were told that they hadn't cited any sources because they made up some stuff, added it to the bottom of their Wikipedia page. But
Yeah, I
no,
didn't see anything crazy. It said so. Is Cedric the Entertainer, is that false then, or
was that what? Sorry.
it said that Cedric the Entertainer was a part owner of HVM Racing?
Yeah, yeah. When I raced for HVM both years, it ran under different names. So obviously people remember Minardi Team USA
Mm-hmm.
2007. That was still HVM with Paul Stoddart involved. But then in '06, the previous year, it was called CTE Racing for Cedric the Entertainer. And that was
Oh,
I
okay.
think from what I understood at the time, that was kind of like a marketing attempt, pair up to use Cedric's name and hopefully gain access to maybe some of his contacts that would help with fundraising.
Yeah, it's kind of like that Carmelo deal when he sponsored PJ Chestnut the 500 like 2006 or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, so we met, myself and Nelson, Philippe, my teammate that year, we met Cedric a couple of times. I think
Mm-hmm.
Toronto was one. Maybe there was like a film festival or something going on. And so maybe we hung out with him in a limo or something. But he was a really nice guy. You know, I don't know what Cedric really knows about motorsport, so he was really cool though. He was very friendly and chatty.
Yeah, that's cool. I didn't realize that he was involved like that. So and obviously, I mean, your first year in Champ Car, you had a little bit of success. You got a podium. Second year, you got a second place, I think. Yeah. I mean, what kind of how do you think the competition level really compared from racing in Europe? Because I mean, we've interviewed a lot of people, and everyone says usually America, like the competition level in America, is just as good, if not better, than Europe.
hmm well, I mean, we're talking about 20 years ago now.
Yeah, and it is different, right?
I would say, you know, and I did F3. I was racing against Alvaro Parente, Charlie Kimball, Mike Conway, Danilo Durrani, Bruno Senna, and we did some F3 races in Europe too, like the famous, you know, one-off events like the Marlboro Masters at Zandvoort and Macau Grand Prix. So that year, you know, we would have raced against Robert Kubica at Macau, Degrassi, um, I'm forgetting a bunch, but Vettel, Hamilton,
Oh,
Duval, Grosjean, just tons of people. So, you know, to go from that to
sure.
IndyCar or Champ Car, that's not to downplay Champ Car, but I did kind of feel that I think initially at the time, and I'm drawing back on memories from 20 years ago, I think my initial feeling was surprise that there were moments when I was able to do well that early in Champ Car. But I also think that was some of my natural aggression. I remember James Robinson is a famous F1 engineer, and he was a friend of ours around that time. And again, this is going back to when I was like 21, and I openly admit I used to drive like an absolute idiot. Like I didn't even know how to really drive properly. It was probably the end of my F3 season where I finally started to drive properly, having had coaching class sessions with Rob Wilson, who people in racing will know is kind of like probably the most famous coach in racing and still coaches today at all different levels really of drivers. And that was when I really only started learning how to drive properly. So I would say I was surprised how well I did in Champ Car in the beginning, but everybody knows from my racing that, I'd also made a lot of mistakes. I remember my engineer that year teaching me how to use the differential properly. I really didn't know what I was doing a lot of the time, just driving on sheer aggression. So I'd say, I don't know, I think there's a little bit of aggression you learn if you grow up racing go-karts in the UK and Formula Ford and maybe even a bit of F3, you learn some really, intense, hard driving. You know when to go for a move a little bit and when not, because somebody might just have you off the track. It's kind of, that kind of cutthroat. And I'd say the first thing I noticed in the US was drivers were talking to each other like they were friends before the races. Like I remember the first time I saw Tracy chatting to Bourdais, and I'm thinking like, what the heck's going on here? Because in
Right.
Europe and the UK,
Yeah.
it's like everybody just really kind of like is kind of butting heads with each other or avoiding each other. Yeah, I don't know. The culture's just different. Culture's just different, I think.
One thing that I don't know, and I probably should. Obviously, I know you as Speedy Dan Clarke. How did you get the nickname Speedy?
My manager made it up. He
Really?
wanted to, yeah, sorry, just like kind of telling everyone that Santa Claus is not real. Maybe I don't know. No, he just wanted to coming from the music business, he viewed racing and almost everything that happened to us during those 2 years as kind of just this is entertainment, this is a show. Um, and so he wanted to maybe make something a bit catchy. And I remember being at his house a few weekends and he's throwing out different names like Racer Dan or things like this. And I was kind of like, they're all kind of silly. And I'm pretty bashful. Like, I don't really want a nickname or to push a nickname.
Hmm.
But Speedy, I think, might have been used a little bit in some hero cards in the beginning of my time in the US. And then it just kind of stuck. I think as a pretty shy British guy, probably people calling me Speedy in the beginning probably just made me cringe a little bit. And now I just don't really notice it. But it's funny when it comes back. Now I'm 40 years old and it comes back and it's just kind of a nice feeling like, oh, I feel young again.
I mean, you're wearing a shirt that says Speedy on it, so
Yeah, funny you should say that. Yeah, I guess I do have kind of a small simulator, driving simulator business. That's one of my side
oh
gigs
wow.
now. And I did brand it, yeah, Speedy Simulators.
Oh,
So I
that's cool.
did a run of t-shirts recently, and yeah, definitely plugging simulators, which is part of what I do now. But yeah, so it did stick, and now I am just kind of used to it.
It's funny because like I'm on a bunch of like IndyCar forums, and every so often someone will post like an autograph, and it'll just be like on a piece of paper, and it'll just say Speedy, and it'll have a heart, and people are like, "Who is
Oh
this?
God. Yeah.
You signed the heart. Love it."
Yeah, that was so signing Speedy, obviously that's just really weird, but that was what a few fans would request
Yeah,
at signing sessions, because Champ Car, I think IndyCar probably still does, I'm not sure, but
yeah,
Champ
they
Car
do.
always used to have Friday afternoon autograph sessions. People started asking, can you sign Speedy? And then my teammate that year, Nelson, he had a signature, I think it was like a N and a P, and he used to put a heart. And so then I think because we used to banter back and forth, Nelson and I were really good friends, which was really nice because, you normally don't, if you come from Europe and Nelson's French, he's raced a lot in Europe too. You're not really friends with your teammates. Everybody says that, right? But we kind of really, got on well together, engineering meetings and stuff, and then hanging out outside the track, we were good friends. So there was a little bit of banter there, like, I'm going to put a heart in my autograph too, just to make fun. And then, yeah. So, yeah, if I see a Speedy autograph with a heart in it, I almost know that that was signed in 2006.
Oh wow, that's cool. Yeah. So end of I think it was end of 2007. The merger happened, right? Was it 2007? End of 2007?
Yeah, probably beginning of '08, more like, right? Because the
Yeah.
timing,
No, you're right.
Champ Car teams probably tell you that they had to just really rush.
When did that I mean, when was there? And I mean, I was so young then. I don't even really remember how it all went down. Like when was like the word like this was going to happen? Like when did that start?
That's a really good question. I mean, I don't know if people were in the know or not, but I would say maybe it was November, December time.
Oh, okay.
Can't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really don't remember. I just remember, what it meant for everyone. 2 grids of 17 cars was condensed down to what, about 26 cars.
Yeah.
So there were drivers, without the music had stopped, and there was some, drivers without seats, chairs to sit in.
Right. No, I can only imagine. And unfortunately, I mean, so after that, I think you ended up doing Indy Lights with Walker. But before then, if I remember correctly, you almost had a ride for the 500 at one point, right?
Yeah, almost. Yeah, that's kind of a story in itself too. Um, yeah, yeah, I'd had a crappy season in 2007, so I wasn't wholly surprised to not, have the phone ringing. It was kind of a young, growing year, and just personal, not issues really, but just growing up and making bad choices. But I would say, um, but yeah, for '08. Maybe I came close to a 500 deal. I'm not really sure if you could call it that, because it was we were told we had some sponsorship funds, and it was going to be, I think, Subway sponsorship, and I think it ended up being used. I think Paul Tracy ran it, maybe,
Yeah.
and he did
Sounds
like
right.
some Canadian races. I remember him doing really well too. But yeah, somebody told us we had Subway money. It was like 300,000 or something. Like, go see if you can get a 500 ride. Well, rides were a bit cheaper back then, but they weren't that cheap. And I
Right.
think I ended up dealing or talking with a team that had a car, and they were confident it would be fast, and it wasn't even a Delara. I think it was a G-Force or something. But at the time I was thinking, this is my chance. Um, and for a lot of different reasons, thank God I didn't end up doing it. But yeah, the car, I think, might have had like plant pots in it when I went to look at it in the back of a shop. I'm like, from what I know now, which is still not much, I'm like really glad I didn't try to roll that thing out. It wouldn't have lasted, I'm sure.
Right. So, so then you get the Walker. So how did the Indy Lights deal? Like, was that something that you're going to do Indy Lights and hopefully win races and then get into IndyCar, or was it just you were just looking for any opportunities at that point?
Well, there was a little bit of racing before then too. So that Indy Lights was 2010.
Yeah.
End of Champ Car was end of '07. So in '09, the A1 GP series was
Oh,
still
that's right.
running,
Yeah,
and
remember
so
that.
my manager kind of had been talking to the British team, and you know um, got me a ride for a few races in that, and did pretty good. At that point, in my life, I was kind of like, okay, I've been out of car for almost 2 years. Everyone thinks I wreck all the time. That's probably mostly true. um, I'm tired of crashing, and putting myself on the back foot with that. So getting the chance to drive that car again at first was a bit overwhelming, because I haven't been going that fast for 18 months, in anything. So I had to kind of get dialed back in, and really was an opportunity to show that I, didn't always wreck. So we did pretty good. We had a bunch of top tens in A1 GP in the races I did. British race as well was the last one, the last A1 GP race. And then for the following year, beginning of 2010, someone called me and said, "Hey, Derek Walker's got sponsorship, but he doesn't have a driver now." And this was after St. Pete, after the first race. He'd like fallen out with the previous driver or something. And I'd previously raced against Derek in Champ Car, because I was rookie when Will Power was a rookie. So
Yeah.
he drove for Walker, and never talked to the guy. Only ever crashed into their cars, So I figured, well, I'll give him a call because I'm desperate, but he's probably not going to want to talk to me. But he did. He invited me to his shop. I went and met him, and obviously at that point they didn't have the big program that they previously had. They didn't have obviously Indy cars in that shop. They didn't have Atlantic cars, so it's pretty empty. It's pretty quiet in there. I think there was just a couple of staff still on, and we were chatting, and it was nice. And at one point I explained to him, or I tried to make up for my past by saying, when I raced Champ Car, I really just focused on my own team, my own relationships with those people, and just trying to get the best out of ourselves. And because of what happened between me and your cars, you probably thought I was a bit of a wanker. And Derek just said, yeah. So I had to really want to bury the hatchet, and we did that then. And he called me up and said, "Hey, do you want to drive for me, the rest of the season?" And because he had most of the sponsorship, that was really the only chance reason why I was able to do that. And that was really good. Got to race the year of Indy Lights. Derek worked extremely hard at it. I think we changed engineers halfway through the team, changed a couple other things. It was the first year for me really driving for a team that they had the funds. So I was also kind of terrified of Derek because, he speaks his mind and he can be pretty bossy when he wants to be. He told me off a few times for my use of language on the radio. And I remember one morning the phone rang and it was like 8:30 in the morning on a Monday. And I saw it was him calling me and I really, was terrified. Thought he was calling me to fire me. So we didn't do well in the first half of the year. But he actually called me to tell me he'd fired the engineer and had a new engineer. And I was kind of like, okay, good. It's a great decision.
Yeah, I mean, you guys
Yeah.
ended up getting some podiums. I think towards the end of that year, middle of that year, Toronto and Mid Ohio.
Yeah, we had some weird problems for the first half of the year. We couldn't figure out why we were wearing out the floor on the back of the car. And we kept raising the rear up. And obviously that then presented its own issues in the handling of the car. The rear was too high, but we were still wearing the floor out. And I think in the end, they found there was some mounting issue with the back of the car. And then that kind of turned things around. And yeah, had some good races, really good races. In fact, the engineer that came in was Nathan Rourke.
Okay, that
Who's
name
still in
sounds familiar.
IndyCar.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was obviously a great engineer, and we got some good results then. It was good. But then by the end of 2010, that was kind of another chapter closing in my life. I knew the writing was on the wall. I didn't have any sponsorship. I wasn't going to IndyCar. No one was calling me. We did well, but it was going to be a new life from then on.
Yeah, I remember after that, talking to you at some point, and you were just talking about some of the series you were racing in, and there was at least one or two. It was basically like a gentleman racer series, right? Like it was something along those
Yeah.
lines.
Yeah, I
And
think 2011 was like a year of being at the racetrack, talking to teams, and being at all sorts of racetracks, NASCAR racetracks, Grand Am, American Le Mans, IndyCar, and probably over the course of the whole year and a little bit beyond that too, just dying inside. I did that a lot in 2008 and nothing really came of it. It has presented opportunities for drivers in the past, the old bring your helmet to the track because you never know what might happen. And nothing kind of did. So after 2011 and doing a couple of races here and there, like trying some Pirelli World Challenge, which is now SRO, doing a race in NASCAR nationwide on a road course. After that, it was kind of like, okay, I literally am sitting down with my roommate at the time, who I rented a bedroom from, explaining, I'm going to be behind a few months on rent, for the next few months. Is that going to be okay? Like, do you mind? And he was really cool about it all. But at that point, I was late 20s. So, I'd been broke all through my 20s. And I didn't have any racing opportunities in front of me moving forward. So it was time to really kind of change strategy and figure out some ways to pay off some credit card bills and pay some rent.
Sure. I still remember you talking about it was one of those series you were racing in. Basically, they basically someone told you not to come back because you were like winning everything, and people were upset. I forget what. I just remember you talking about that.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny. I mean, it's just life, but in some club sports car type series, there's a lot out there, and I've been around that stuff a lot
Sure.
because I started coaching drivers in there, and then invariably in the beginning I was still like a hungry, I want to go racing, any opportunity I can get to be in a car. Um, so I probably raced quite a bit early on, and of course, is it, you're kind of an ex-professional race car driver racing against guys in their 40s and 50s who have, made their money and just now started racing. So you're winning the races, and I can see it from both sides, and I'm not upset. I wasn't upset with anyone really, but yeah, there were people who were kind of like, this would be a lot more fun if you weren't here. Because
You
this
were
is not
breaking like
really your
track.
place.
If I remember correctly, you were breaking like track records and stuff in those cars.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know how good they really were, but
Right.
yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just you're kind of the bigger fish coming into a small pond, and I'm glad that I don't do it that much anymore, or I don't do it at all anymore.
Hmm.
I'll do it for fun nowadays, but I'm not trying to ruin other people's fun, that if I was a self-made guy and I wanted to start racing, I wouldn't want, some little washed up hot shoe or whatever you would say in there ruining the fun. But yeah, that was how I started coaching again. Really, you got to convince some of these guys that you're good too, and you can teach them, and that's what I had to then. That was the era of, I guess, my life that I went through then was proving to people like, hey, I can teach you. I know how to drive. Look, watch, and I can teach you how to drive too. And can you help me pay my bills? You know?
Right. And and it seems like a lot of open wheel guys, when they realize there's no, their opportunities are very limited in open wheel racing, they go over to sports car racing, kind of like what you did. But with sports car racing like IMSA and stuff, you have all like the ranking system, gold, silver, bronze, and that really messes up yeah, a lot of people complain about that because it's hard. I think because you'd probably be like a silver or something, and they say it's very hard.
Mhm.
Like you're better off being like a bronze in that case.
Yeah, yeah. I think for some reason, or luckily, I've always kind of I think I came close to being a bronze a couple of times
Hmm.
because it had just been so long since I've been in a car. But obviously the classifications have changed again, and I'm still a silver, which is good. You can kind of do stuff when you're a silver,
Yeah.
but there's also so many silvers, right? And then there's silvers with their own funding as well. And no one's kidding anybody, motorsport's expensive, so
Right. Even sports car racing, it still takes money, and I think,
yeah.
I mean, you compared to any, I mean, just as much as anyone else in racing, if not more. I mean, everything you've been through with Champ Car and through now. And we talk to so many people, in similar circumstances and just how much money is involved. I mean, you've seen motorsports the past at least 20 years, right? Like how it's changed. I mean, do you think that it's changing for the good, or, I mean, it's still obviously just as money driven, um, but probably even more now.
Yeah, I think different series have changed differently, but
Yeah.
yeah, I would say I exist mostly around sports car circles nowadays, which might surprise some people, if they were Champ Car fans 20 years ago. But this is where I've been for the last couple of decades. I would say sports car racing it's catered towards what it needs to be catered towards. Yeah, it probably is more of a customer focused, customer facing business model, but it has to be. The money's there. Those drivers spend the money. They're probably good customers. They learn to get quicker. They pay for pro teammates. It kind of works in that sense. Probably motorsport just goes like anything goes through cycles, right? But right,
Yeah.
since there aren't companies throwing huge amounts of money at it, teams got to turn somewhere else to find the funding. And it's popular if you look at the grids. It's
Yeah.
huge,
Oh yeah.
right?
So this past year did you do the entire, is a Porsche North America Carrera Cup Series? Is that correct?
You're almost there, yeah. It's a deluxe Porsche Carrera
Deluxe.
Cup
Okay.
Series North America. Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, really I mean, if you go yeah, if you go club racing coaching, invariably you're going to see some drivers from my era. I would see Jan Halen a lot at Porsche Club America events. Even saw Justin Wilson a few times, kind of when he was between IndyCar rides.
Mm-hmm.
And the first conversation is, "What the heck are you doing here?" But you go, you kind of go back to Porsche Club America type stuff for coaching if you're not that busy, right? If you don't have a paid race ride. And at some point you might get lucky because you might find a guy there that's just started racing, and it could be a millionaire, he could want to race IMSA, and you form a relationship with those people. You provide good services for them. You're coaching them, getting them ready for professional level racing, and you might then get to go all the way with them. And so, that kind of happened with me a little bit with this Porsche Carrera Cup Series racing that I did this year. Um, Probably a few years ago, if you remember the Porsche Festival at
Yeah,
Indianapolis,
sure.
when that was announced, a guy had been coaching, had a Porsche Cup car, and asked like, "Hey, do you want to race it in this series? Because we're all here based in Indianapolis. This is happening in our backyard. It'd be really fun to put you in there because you could do well, And we did that, and we were kind of a local team, the main sponsor was Reese Nichols Jewelers, and then Bartlett Motorsport were the guys that ran the car, and we won the races. That was 2021, and then we entered the same car the following year and won those races again. And so at that point, at the same time, I've also been kind of resident pro coach at a country club racetrack here in Indiana at Putnam Park, which
Hunter Park.
race
Okay, yeah.
fans will know of. It was built in 1991 as an IndyCar test track, and it's still there today, and it's thriving. It's probably 10 years ago that kind of added a country club element to its facility, and so it has a lot of garages, you would call garages for
Mm-hmm.
country club members, as a VIP clubhouse for members, and almost half the days of the year it's members only. And I was fortunate enough 10 years ago to be asked to come and coach some new members who didn't know how to drive. And then since then, it's just carried on. And I'm one of the other caps I wear besides building simulators and coaching race car drivers is coaching club members at Putnam Park. And that's probably, as a coach and a driver, that's probably the closest you can get to, having some sort of a 9 to 5 or a job you can drive to from your own house each day. And so a lot of those members, formed friendships with me, and those were the guys that kind of stepped in with this opportunity for 2023, with Reese Nichols Jewelers. And another relationship I'd formed up until that point as well was with the Isringhausen Porsche, BMW, Mercedes business out in Illinois, who Jeff Isringhausen's always been a racer himself. These guys all kind of clubbed together, and we were kind of like, I wonder how Dan would do in Porsche Carrera Cup. And all these guys were people that didn't know me back in IndyCar. Maybe some of them are IndyCar fans, but I can't think who at the minute. But yeah, so they hadn't seen that old Champ Car stuff, but they were aware of it. But yeah, now I'm also 40 years old, not 22. So it was kind of like let's see how Dan does. And me at 39 at the time was kind of like, oh, I wonder what it would be like to go back race at that kind of level, As an older guy, I would say you'll understand, Aaron, when you get there.
Hey, I'm already feeling it. I'm going to be 31, and I don't know where time has gone.
Oh yeah, how's your back?
My back's fine.
Oh yeah, good.
Yeah, no, my back. So it's funny. I feel like we've talked a little bit about like fast times and stuff through text, and like I definitely feel it in my back more than I probably used to. But other than
Do
that,
squats, do
it seemed
squats and
yeah.
individual squats and stuff. Look after that back.
Really, like the past few years, like most of my life, I've never done like a lot of like physical. I mean, I do physical activity, but not like the past several years. I've started mountain biking. I started playing like pickleball, so I'm trying to be more active, and definitely makes a big difference.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I mean, I know I'm not really that old. There's a lot of people think I'm still young, but yeah, keep moving, keep active. I think men in general, and everybody sits down a lot nowadays, but men in general have weak cores, right? So if you can do a little bit of core here and there, and
Yeah.
but when your back starts really hurting, then you'll start taking it more seriously. That's at least was for me, you know. You start doing more core stuff, and it's way better to be able to be active, right? Nobody wants to groan when they sit up or get down and sit down. So you'll be fine, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's funny,
But
like
yeah,
I'm sorry,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. No, I was gonna say it's funny, we do like a lot of go-kart videos of fast times with former drivers, and some of the IRL guys we've done it with, like, some of them can't do it because they have bad backs from, wrecks. Back then, obviously, when you crashed in the late 90s, early 2000s, it's not like crashing now. It's completely different deal, and, a lot of people, their feet are messed up because of how your feet were basically in front of the front axle and stuff like that, so it's crazy kinda how that's all changed.
Yeah, yeah. I'm really kind of glad that I raced in the era that I did, and that I didn't, touch wood, get really hurt in racing. I know other people not so fortunate. But yeah, I can't imagine what it's like. I think I remember spending time with Johnny Herbert years and years ago in Monaco, and he's obviously he had that horrific accident before his F1 career. And I think he has partial like fusing of ankles. So he kind of looks, so when he walks down the steps, his ankles don't bend. So he kind of like has to hobble on his heels down steps all the time. And obviously that presented challenges in his racing as well, but I'm rambling now.
Oh, no, no, you're good. So I want to give you a chance to talk a little bit about your simulator business, any other businesses. I know you talked a little bit about it, but anything else you want to talk about to promote your businesses or your involvement?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So through probably the last decade was just kind of like find any work you can,
Hmm.
coaching, automotive work,
You did
dealership
spotting,
training.
you did spotting to the 500 too. I forgot about that. I remember seeing you out there
Yeah.
in different crew shirts. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I probably spotted 7, 8, or 9 500s,
Wow.
and probably from the first one to the last one. The first one was 2011 was Matos, and then shared the spotting with Ari Leindyke Jr.
Hmm.
Um, Probably from then to now, spotting last year for Canapino, actually, just for the 500. It was like a late deal. I spotted Carb Day and Race Day. And it's always nice coming back there because, believe it or not, a lot of the Junko's crew were my old crew from HVM. So their team manager was my team manager, which was really cool. Will Phillips, my engineer from 2007, was an engineer on that team then. Brad Mose was another engineer this year at the 500 for that team. He was my data engineer in '06. So that was really nice. But from then till the last 500 I spotted, it was really the kind of change from race day being on the top of turn one, thinking I should be in this race, to now thinking, thank God I'm not in this race.
Right.
Now I'm just older and I'm just, oh, no way, I don't want to be in that. It just looks too dangerous now.
Right.
But yeah, just doing lots of different jobs. Um, Simulators was something that started about 5 years ago. Because being out of racing, if you're a driver, you're gonna probably get into simulator racing. You need to get your buzz, your kick. Um, And then there came a time when I was cycling up through the simulator equipment to make my sim better and, more realistic to drive. Some of the guys I coached in club level racing were buying simulators, or they bought simulators. And when I saw what they bought, I was kind of like, oh man, that sucks. Like you kind of got ripped off. And then I kind of decided, well, I could probably build these simulators, um, and build them for less. And so, with my own experience and being a little bit handy and having a garage that I turned into a workshop, I started building simulators at home. And now I've sold over 60 simulators. Um,
Oh, wow.
it's been a nice side gig. I would say, I'm a coach. This year I was a driver again. Um, I work at the country club, racetrack at Putnam, the club, and I build simulators at home as well, and I really enjoy it. The simulated stuff I really like. I kind of feel like a small, very small operation that kind of hand builds and tweaks custom driving simulators. Just trying to impart that experience to other people, that you can kind of use simulators to feel like you're really racing, really driving a car. It can be a training tool, but it also can just be an escape from life a little bit. And you can learn racecraft. You get to race against other humans, you're going to learn a lot about racing, and they're fun. I use my own at least once, twice a week, and do a little bit of coaching on them as well remotely.
Yeah, so and I know you have a kid now. Like, what would you do, like, if and if you have other kids, like, if a kid ever said, "I want to get into racing," like, would that be something? Because obviously, you've seen all aspects of the sport.
Yeah, yeah, probably all aspects. Yeah, yeah, I've kind of been through the ringer a little bit with racing, but who hasn't? I definitely haven't
Sure.
had the worst experience. I'd say for years, when I have a kid, the probably the first sports they'll do is going to be tennis. It's going to be golf. It's going to be everything before it's going to be racing.
Right.
But now I'm a year in with our little one. I have a little girl, and lately she started noticing the simulator. She knows where it is sometimes too, even if the door in the basement's closed. And she likes to sit on it a little bit. For a while, she found the keyboard, so she wanted to just tap away on the keyboard. But now she found the steering wheel, and I think yeah, any parent's gonna tell you, even if it's something you don't like, if your kid wants to do it, your kid's gonna get priority, right? So we'll see. But racing's really competitive, you can do it for fun a little bit. It can be really good for life experiences.
Hmm.
It can keep some kids out of trouble while they're young.
Oh, yeah.
Um, but I would say probably if she wanted to do a little bit of go-karting or something, and mum allowed it, it would have to be under the understanding, of what motorsport is really like, and what your hopes can really be realistic. And I think being realistic at a young age is probably beneficial rather than maybe having your head in the clouds.
Yeah, I would say probably playing basketball or playing tennis would probably be just a little bit cheaper than racing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Just a little
Yeah.
bit, a lot, but yeah.
I can't imagine what it's like actually trying to do a sport that's as popular as basketball or football. If you think about the pyramid of abilities, how wide that pyramid must be, trying to climb your way up, trying to get college scholarships and stuff like that. It must be insane.
I'm friends with a couple like road to Indy drivers, and like I never really a lot of people don't understand on the outside like what's involved. Like to do like a full season of just USF 2000, you're talking almost $500,000.
Yeah.
Like it's just crazy, and that's you get a lot of kids with basically rich parents. I mean, there's no other way around it, right? Just rich parents, or they find someone that likes them with a lot of money. And then I mean to do IndyCar now, like I was hearing rumors like, for example, like Stingray Rob had like $9 million for next year. Like
Wow.
that's insane.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. Yeah, I don't
That
know what.
and that's about how apparently that's how much it costs to do a full IndyCar season now. As people were saying about $8 or $9 million, which is just insane.
Yeah, I feel a little bit hesitant to say really, because I might just be showing that I'm just aging really. But yeah, I mean, there's some of the things on the Indy cars that I wonder these days, kind of like, do you need that kind of technology if that makes the racing that more expensive? But I don't know. I mean, I'm around IndyCar probably for the 500 with spotting, and then I enjoy watching it because I think the product, the racing's fantastic. Has been for a number of years now. A little bit glad that I'm not trying to do it nowadays because I think the competition's probably even more intense. It's really, there's a lot of people that like F1, but then I think there's a lot of people that then watch IndyCar that haven't before and decide that it might even be a bit more exciting at times.
Right, absolutely. Well, Dan, I really appreciate you taking the time and coming on the podcast. I know I've wanted to have you on for some time, but obviously you've been a little busy, so I completely understand that with having a
Yeah,
kid and all that. So
thanks for reaching back out. I appreciate it. Yeah, I know the last year we've been trying to set this out, and then it's been a busy year for me with everything, and but everybody is good, and we had a great year racing in Carrera Cup this year. We won a
mhm.
few podiums. It was, really grateful to everybody that's helped sponsor me this year, and Reese Nichols Jewelers for really putting it all together, and Nola Sport that ran the car for us. We had a really good year, got a few podiums, and really was glad to do it as a 40-year-old. I keep saying that. I know I'm obsessing a little bit, but really glad to do it. And kind of see that you still have it, show that you still have it,
Hmm.
but also for like really a few fans of mine throughout the years will appreciate too that it was a great opportunity for me to show that I'm not Crash or Dan, and I have some ageful wisdom now when I'm racing, and that was really my goal for the whole year. Personally, was let's see if there is such a thing as ageful wisdom. Maybe I have it. Let's see. And so yeah, still had that, and then still had a bit of speed. Um, yeah, and if you don't mind, if I can close out, if anyone is shopping for driving simulators, my website's not up yet, but feel free to slide into my DMs, Speedy Dan Clarke on Instagram.
And when you
Happily.
get a website, just tell me and I'll add it. I can add it in the description of the video.
Okay, cool. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, if anyone wants to chat about Sims, I'm happy to chat away to anyone, help people that want to get into sim racing, save themselves some money and get some good equipment.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate it, and yeah, thanks for coming on, and yeah, I'll let you know about that go-kart deal. I'm still trying to work out the details on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and congrats on the show as well. You guys got a ton of episodes and some really cool guests, and I was nice. Even it was nice seeing Scott Harrington. I've
Yeah.
been in the parking lot with Scott. I never knew him before, but we worked together on automotive programs, and that's obviously how I know Stefan as well, which I didn't know before. So it was nice seeing some of these guys again. And I couldn't get from the from Gregoire's episode, like, what does he do now? I feel like you guys, I must have missed.
I don't know what he. I honestly, I don't even remember what he does now. I know he was doing some like driving management stuff, maybe. But yeah, I don't know what he's doing anymore. He still lives in Indy. I know that.
Oh, okay, because I thought he was moving. Or maybe it was just one of his kids. I think one of his kids, right, moved. Maybe it was college or something, and sports that she was involved
He's,
in. But
he's not around that much. I mean, I've never seen him at the track. Like he's just
yeah,
not really around.
like month of May, I don't think I've ever seen him month of May.
But it's funny, like the more people we talk about, like these guys, like a lot of them, like don't come back. I don't know why. It's just they just don't.
You don't know why? It's too painful, probably,
Yeah,
or
and
they
it
probably
it
just.
might be, but yeah, like well, a lot. The thing with a lot of people, like Roberto Guerrero said this, like if he's not involved in some capacity, like either as a driver coach or something, he's like, there's no reason for me to be there.
Oh, absolutely. I agree too. I'm like that. I just feel like I'm in the way, or
Yeah.
I'm just like some sort of groupie, like hanging on at this point. Just I don't know. I just die inside. I don't sell myself very well to people. That's
Hmm.
probably why I didn't have that many sponsors in racing, but some drivers are better at it. But yeah, I can't be around if I don't have a job there. In fact, Roberto is another guy that I met for the first time in the automotive world too, and Davy Jones, and
Yeah.
there's been many more. But um, I don't know who coined the phrase. I think people accredit it to Mario Andretti, that says that all drivers, we all end up in the parking lot one day. The only difference is how much you're being paid.
Right. It's weird. Like from doing this podcast, like I've seen everything. Like a lot of people do it when I ask them to, but like just there's some people that are very like bitter. Like I had one person say, "I have absolutely no desire at all to talk about my racing career,"
Yeah, I can
and it's
believe
just
that.
these guys drove in the Indy 500. You think that would be something you'd be proud of? Like there's only like 200 something people alive that can say they've driven an Indy 500.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk about that for a while. I feel like, I'd say that finally having children, it's really kind of changed me a lot.
Yeah.
My perspective on a lot of things. Um, I think there's a lot of bitterness you can have in racing. I think depending on your personality, maybe some people feel like they're owed something more, or maybe some people have just been shafted a lot, because there's a lot of wheeler dealing going on. There's always some unsavory people, so maybe some people really had some bad experiences. It's a it's a strange industry, as you know. Yeah, there are some amazing race car drivers, but there's also a lot more that goes into deals, that determine whether someone gets to be a race car driver or not. And unfortunately, I think, if you're going to be any good at racing, you're probably better off starting it when you're about 8 years old. So then that means, when you get mid-30s, you've been doing this for 30 years. And I think for me, in my own experience, I'm kind of happy and fortunate to be in a position where, the mortgage is paid for, we haven't had to worry about it. I still work all the time. I didn't earn any money from racing. Um, but I'm fortunate enough to have the life I have, and I'm still young enough that I feel like I can pursue other things. And I think that's one thing is my experience with racing is, it's never too late to do other things. And if you're good at racing, you've done it your whole life, well, you've probably missed out on a lot of stuff. And maybe some people feel the regret of that too, or the frustration of like, hey, I dedicated my whole life to this. And some people will probably say I got shit back for it. Or maybe they're worse off, they got like I got twisted legs for it too. And I
Right.
can't even run anymore. But there's all sorts of people, all sorts of experiences. But for me, I'm kind of fortunate and kind of excited to find something else to do in life.
Well, it's cool that you're still, involved, like your businesses now are involved in racing. Like there's like for example, Alex Lloyd, we talked to him. He has nothing to do with racing now. He's working at a marketing company or something out in San Francisco. And he says like, like when they do onboarding and stuff, they'll play that game like two trues and one false or whatever, like about yourself. And he would always put like, I drove in the Indy 500, and everyone was like, no, he didn't.
That's cool. Yeah, he's kind of dropped off the map.
Yeah, he has. He came back this year. He was at the Legends Day signing they do every year. But he was there this year, but I think that was his first time back. So it's funny, he met his he's married now. He met his wife off Hinge or Bumble, one of the I think it was Hinge, one of those dating sites, like
Oh,
Bumble
really?
or Hinge, and she's actually was an Olympic diver. She was in the Olympics.
Wow. Oh, wow. So is that in the UK? Is that where he lives now?
No, he lives in San Francisco, I think. Um,
Oh, wow.
yeah, near San
Huh.
Francisco. But yeah, I thought
Yeah,
it
it'd
was interesting.
be cool to see where everyone is. I mean, I kind of like the diversity. I like everyone's got interesting stories. I kind of almost feel like race car drivers, there's a certain level of interest on the face of it, but then it quickly becomes quite boring. And I think the average person probably feels it too, though. Like think of half the population of women, right? There's tons of women that see IndyCar drivers and they're just like, they probably couldn't pick one out from the other, right? We all start to look quite boring after a while because we're all doing the same job, same, fighting for hundredths of a second. The average person
Sure.
doesn't really care about that kind of stuff. But everyone's got interesting backstories too. I think that's what makes a lot of guys interesting. It'd be cool to see where people are now. I know some people have different businesses. I'm good friends with Ryan Lewis and Steven Simpson.
Hmm.
Steven Simpson's got other businesses. So does Ryan. I know, like Jan Halen, for years has owned like a bicycle shop down in Florida. Just people have different side stories. I think it makes people more interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, man, no, I appreciate it. I'll let you. I know you had to go at 11, so I'll let you go back to being a dad.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Absolutely. Thanks. Good to see you, and good luck with the show.